Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Impartation Moment on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Today's section, we want to take a closer look at the posterior inferior surface of the liver. This time around, looking at the various impressions that the associated viscera make on, of course, the liver. Yes, we will end with, of course, the biliary tree, where we look at, the pathway of the flow of bile. Yes, right from where we have the hepatocytes, the production site, yes, through the bile canaliculi, yes, to canals of, herring, yes, all the way eventually till, it's released into what we call the second part of the duodenum. So we look at the pathway as well. And so, without much ado, let's set the ball rolling. So there we are. Now this is a schematic, representation of the posterior inferior surface of the liver. And then of course, yes, we said that we are going to have this larger right lobe. And of course, we are going to have this, smaller left lobe. Yes, we got to know that, yes, we are going to have this, tail-shaped, or the one which is shaped like the rabbit's tail, yes, being the quadrature loop as an accessory loop. If you look at the posterior inferior surface, okay, that's the quadrature loop. And the quadrature loop here is the most posterior loop of the liver, and we said it's sandwiched between, of course, the groove of inferior vena cava to the right, and of course, the fissure for what we call ligamentum venosum, okay, to the left. Now, apart from, yes, this is the main thing, that's the quadrature loop, but this quadrature loop bears what we call a papillary process, okay? There's that kind of elevation over there we call papillary process. And then we also have what we call the caudate process. Now both of these processes belong to what we call the caudate loop of the liver. Okay, so that is what we see. Now at, yes, the anterior aspect, anterior aspect, the loop that we find where it's quadrangular shape is what we call the quadrature loop. And we said it's sandwiched between, of course, to the right by the fossa of the gallbladder, and of course to the left by what we call the fissure of the round ligament of the liver, ligamentum, venosum. Sorry, ligamentum teres hepatis. Okay, round ligament of the liver. And we said this is the hilar area, and the hilar area, the most posterior one, and the one who is the biggest, okay, having the largest lumen, also in the center, is what we call the hepatic, portal vein. And then of course, the two anterior things that we find in the porta hepatis, forming the portal triad. Yes, to the right is what we call the common bile duct, and of course to the left is the hepatic artery proper. Okay, we've seen this one, so if you've not watched the previous video on this, then you get that one and watch it. All right, now this time I'm just interested in showing you the various impressions, okay, made over here. Now you know that the esophagus, yes, will have to, yes, open into what we call, yes, join the stomach, okay, and the stomach, yes, is more towards the left, and therefore the esophageal groove, okay, the esophagus, the abdominal esophagus will be related to this left lobe of the liver, posterior inferior surface, okay, this area. So that's where the esophageal groove is. And then of course it continues as what we call the gastric impression, because the stomach will be related over here. Okay, so if I'm looking at the left lobe of the liver, I'm just interested in seeing, of course, the esophageal groove, and then mainly the gastric impression, okay, impression made by the stomach. Then of course we also know that the lesser omentum attaches over here, so we have omental tuberosity as well over here. Okay, all right, and then from there another impression that we see, yes, this time around towards the right, because we know that, yeah, there's going to be something, this transverse colon which gives this, it bends over, okay, and gives us what we call the right colic flexure. And this right colic flexure, we know because of its relation with the liver, is also called, the right, hepatic flexure. And so that hepatic flexure, yes, will be related to the right at the lower aspect. Okay, that's what we see here, colic impression, colic impression. Now, one thing that we find is that just above, you have the kidney, which is also very in close relation to the right, lobe of the liver, okay, at the posterior inferior surface, because over there, there's going to be this kind of pouch over there, the hepatorenal pouch of, Morrison. You find that one over there. Therefore, the posterior aspect of, the kidney, yes, will be related to what we call this liver, the posterior inferior surface of the liver. Okay, so that is, the anterior aspect of the kidney will be related to this posterior inferior surface of the liver. So the right kidney, that's what I mean, and that's the renal impression. We know that just above the kidney we are going to have the right suprarenal gland. Okay, so the right suprarenal gland will also just be above it, so that will be another impression over there. And then of course the duodenum, okay, will also be related to it, the duodenal impression. Yes, let me show you in another image. Yes, so there we are. I said we are going to have what you call the esophageal impression. Now this is the left loop, and therefore the two main things we are going to see will be the esophageal impression, and then from there we are also going to see what we call the gastric impression. Okay, so that is to the left mainly. Of course, we said we're going to see the omental tuberosity. Then we said that at the right aspect, lower aspect, yes, we are going to have impression for what we call as the transverse colon turns and then becomes what we call the ascending colon turns and becomes the transverse colon. Over there we are going to have what we call the colic impression, because of course we said that fish flexure is known as right colic flexure, which is also called the hepatic flexure because of its relation with the liver. Okay, then just above it we are going to have that impression for the right kidney. Okay, right kidney, so renal impression. And then just above even that one we are going to have for the suprarenal gland. Okay, we have impression for the suprarenal gland. Okay, so that is what we are going to actually see over here. And so that is that one for you. Then we also mentioned that of the duodenal impression, okay, as well. So that is that's one. Okay, these are the important viscera which will be related to, of course, the posterior inferior surface of the liver. Yes, already we've seen that the gallbladder will be related over here. Yes, in the gallbladder fossa, yes, gallbladder will be here, between delimiting this quadrature loop of the liver. Okay, we have the gallbladder to the right, and of course the fissure for the round ligament of the liver. Again, we also have the inferior vena cava, yes, as well as the fissure for what we call the ligamentum venosum, delimiting this caudate loop of the liver. So these are the various impressions, yes, of the liver. Now, having seen the various impressions of the liver, we know that the functional parenchyma, yes, the important cells of the liver, yes, being the hepatocytes. Okay, these hepatocytes, they are going to manufacture this kind of bile. Now, we know bile is very important. This bile will have to be stored, yes, in what we call the gallbladder. Okay, it will have to be concentrated over there, and then under the influence of what we call cholecystokinin, yeah, the smooth muscles in the gallbladder will contract, causing the release of the bile into eventually coming into what we call the second part of the duodenum. That's of course the descending part of the duodenum. Okay, so that is what we see. But one thing is that what is the source? What is the factory? We look at the microscopic aspect of this so that we get more details in that. So if I take a section, okay, through the liver, then what will happen is that these hepatocytes, the hepatocytes make what we call the bile. Okay, so bile is manufactured by the hepatocytes of the liver, and then from there, yes, they go into some kind of spaces, we call them bile canaliculi. So adjacent these hepatocytes, you have bile canaliculi, and then from bile canaliculi, yes, they will converge into what we call the canals of Henle, and then from canals of Henle eventually into what we call the portal areas, okay, which we will see histologically or microscopically. We will see those ones. We will have what we call interlobular, what we call bile ductules or bile ducts. Okay, that is where those the bile is flowing towards. Now, pretty soon we get to know that blood will be flowing towards the opposite direction, towards the central vein. When we look at the lobular system of what we call the liver, we will see that. Okay, so that is that one. Now, what am I saying? Now, so over here, we have what we call the hepatocytes making the bile. Then from there, the adjacent spaces between them via bile canaliculi, eventually converging into what we call the canals of Henle, and then from canals of Henle into what we call the interlobular bile ductules or the bile ducts. And then from there, now I told you that the right lobe of the liver eventually will be collecting all this kind of bile, okay, through what we call the right hepatic duct. hepatic bile duct, if you want to say that. Then from the left, including the various accessory loops we mentioned, including the Quadrature loop and the Quadrature loop, they will be bringing the bile through what we call the left hepatic bile duct. Eventually they will converge, yes, the right and then the left will converge to form what we call the common hepatic duct. And then from common hepatic duct, that bile controlled by some sphincters over here, yes, it will get into what we call the cystic duct. There's a cystic duct, eventually taking the bile into what we call the gallbladder. Okay, into the gallbladder. Now in the gallbladder, that bile will have to be stored over there, yes, and by way of storing them, they will get concentrated. And then upon the influence of cholecystokinin, when we need it, especially when one has taken, some kind of fatty food, then the smooth muscles in the gallbladder will contract, releasing this bile again, okay, this time around through what we call the cystic duct again. And so that's one thing you see. The confluence of this common hepatic duct and this, cystic duct gives us this thing which you call the common bile duct. Okay, so from the cystic duct, that bile gets into what we call common bile duct. It is still controlled by some sphincters, and when it gets into the common bile duct, yes, it meets the major pancreatic duct of Wesson. Okay, coming from the pancreas, so secretions from the pancreas joins that of the bile, okay, from the common bile duct, and then both of them, yes, controlled by their own sphincters, they will form this region over here, which we call it the hepatopancreatic ampulla of Veta. And this hepatopancreatic ampulla of Veta is also guarded by a sphincter, and that sphincter is what we call sphincter of Oddi. And this sphincter of Oddi will guard the release of that bile together with this pancreatic secretion into the second part of the duodenum. Okay, so that is what we see over here. Now one thing that you have to know is that this bile, once it gets here, then it means that there's the need for some emulsification, okay, of some kind of lipid over here. Okay, so if the food is too fatty, then what will happen is that under the influence, because the food will be released by the stomach, okay, into the duodenum. And when it gets into the second part of the duodenum, yes, it has to be emulsified. So if the food that someone has taken is too fatty, then what will happen is that means that we need more time for emulsification. And therefore, under the influence of what we call, enterogastron, yes, secreted by these kind of, enteroendocrine cells over here in the small interduodenum, yeah, they will influence the stomach so that the the chyme coming from the stomach will be released intermittently, so that enough time, okay, can be, we will have enough time for the kind of, bile emulsification. So that is, what I want you to know over here. So that is the flow of bile. So let me just give you a summary. What are we saying? So what we are saying is that, yes, bile will be produced by hepatocytes. Okay, from hepatocyte, the adjacent spaces between them, which you call them bile canaliculi, little canals over there, converging into what you call canals of Henry. Then from canals of Henry, yes, eventually we drain into what you call interlobular bile, ductules or bile ducts. Okay, and over there, those ones from the right will drain. Okay, so if it's coming from the right side, then they will drain into what we call the right hepatic duct. And then if it's coming from the left, they will eventually converge into what we call left hepatic duct. Now where they converge, we have what we call common hepatic duct. Okay, common hepatic duct. And then from common hepatic duct, yes, that bile will have to come into what we call the gallbladder through the cystic duct. Okay, so through the cystic duct into the gallbladder for that kind of temporary storage for concentration, and then upon the influence of cholecystokinin released, okay, into through this cystic duct, eventually into what we call this common bile duct. And then common bile duct, we say, joins the major pancreatic ducts, okay, and major pancreatic duct is also called duct of Wesson, and then eventually they will form what we call hepatopancreatic ampulla of Veta. And this hepatopancreatic ampulla of Veta is also guarded by its sphincter, and this sphincter is what we call the sphincter of Oddi, okay, to control the release of bile and pancreatic secretion into the second part of the duodenum. Okay, now what we see is that where it is opening, okay, where this one is opening, where this hepatopancreatic ampulla is opening the skin part of the ureter, it leaves an elevation, and that's what we call major duodenal papilla. Now, mind you that we also have minor pancreatic duct, which opens above what we call the major duodenal papilla, and it opens into what we call at the level of the minor duodenal papilla, that elevation over there, minor duodenal papilla. Okay, so that is, what I want you to know. Now, this time, what I want you to know is that if I talk about, common hepatic ducts, then it's made up of, the right and left hepatic ducts. When I talk about common hepatic ducts, okay, then common bile ducts, then it is made up of cystic duct and common hepatic duct. Please get to know that. Now, over here, I see there's an area which is bounded by this common hepatic duct, okay, to the left, okay, or it's more medial, and then to the right, okay, I can see, or more lateral, I can see this one where is the cystic duct. Okay, there's an area over here which gives this triangle. So for instance, if there is extra hepatic cholestasis, if bile is not flowing and there will be the need to perform some kind of surgery over here, then this triangle, this area is very important that we identify. Okay, I'll show you. This area is what we call the cysto-hepatic triangle of Colic. Now, why am I saying that? Now, cysto, yes, has to do with cystic duct. Hepatic is the common hepatic duct. Yes, so with something, we'll have to bridge it upward so that we get a triangle over here. Okay, and that's the inferior surface of the liver. So let me just go back and show you something. Okay, good. So now over here, you see that that's the inferior surface of the liver. And then I have this, two. Okay, so if you look at it critically, then what will happen is that I told you that the gallbladder is towards the right. And therefore the duct taking the bile, okay, into the gallbladder, okay, being the cystic duct, will also be towards the right. Or that will be lateral boundary of this triangle. And towards a bit medial, okay, towards the left, okay, I have this one, which is the common, hepatic duct. The superior one, okay, which is forming the roof of this, triangle over here, is what we call inferior surface of the liver. Okay, so that is what we have to know. And so if there's any surgery which have to be performed, then this triangle becomes very important landmark, okay, so that we can either get the common hepatic duct, okay, or cystic duct. Okay, this triangle is what we call cysto-hepatic triangle of Colic. All right, so I believe you find this helpful. Just a quick one so that you get you oriented regarding, of course, the various impressions, okay, on the posterior inferior surface of the liver or the visceral surface of the liver, as well as, of course, you trace the bile, biliary tree, okay, right from the production site of bile, okay, till where it is needed. I'm very grateful for your time this evening. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.